Welcome to the high-tech presentation for the IT Skill Standards 2020 and Beyond project. We are going to be talking about how you can leverage our work on skill standards to strengthen your IT program. I am Ann Beheeler. I'm the principal investigator on this project based at Collin College, and Christina Titus is the program director. I think we can all agree on this, and that is that we educators want to make sure our students are very well educated and prepared for work. And what we find is that in survey after survey, businesses don't agree, and the percentages of differences in those two camps of folks actually varies. But what we can agree on is that the businesses and the educators want the graduates to be workforce ready, and that's one of the purposes of the skill standards. Why are these skill standards important? First of all, they provide a blueprint of how the technical knowledge and skills in IT are organized and how the roles of workers contribute to the success of the enterprise. Because ultimately, the businesses are only successful if the workers within the business work together to make the business be successful. They also make IT careers more accessible to students and to employers. I can recall when I had a small consulting firm that I had difficulty coming up with job descriptions that were future-proof. And that's one of the things we're focusing upon. And also many students decide they want to do IT or cyber careers, and they do it based on basically an emotional decision, not understanding what's involved. The KSAs will help with that. And when we talk about KSAs, again, it's knowledge, skills, and abilities. Business and industry do want to hire students who can integrate products, not just one vendor experts. And that's something that as educators in the community college systems can be a real problem, because we now have so much curriculum that is provided by single vendors. It's all very well that folks take curriculum that allows them to go after specific certifications, but if it's a single vendor, that's not real world. They do need to be able to integrate products, and the KSAs are a little bit separated from the products and do focus upon integration. Why are they important? Well, the educators are going to create the curriculum, and the employers are going to use the standards to improve communicating with the folks that apply for the jobs that are open. And all the way through what we're looking at, we're always focusing on future trends, because in fact, we educators take a bit of time to be able to update our curriculum to address anything that's new. Our purpose is to widen the pipeline of qualified IT workers. There are millions and millions of open IT and cybersecurity jobs in the US. And we hear from employers all the time that they are having great difficulty filling those jobs. We're trying very hard through these skill standards to help enlarge that pipeline. We're creating a future-facing set of skill standards. The last full set of skill standards, or comprehensive set, was done in 2003. So we are putting together a contemporary set of comprehensive skill standards that can be used nationally and can be used by state skill standards boards if they decide to. This will assist both the employers and the educators to more easily apply the standards for communication. ITSS engages with employers using the BILT model. And the BILT model was created by the National Convergence Technology Center. You see the link below. And if you want to know more about the BILT model, there is another presentation at High Tech on the BILT model. Further, you can go to the website and you can look under business, and you can find a lot of information there. Essentially, the business and industry leadership team is in fact a co-leadership model rather than an advisory model. The colleges already have to have advisory committees of employers. Instead of having them just advise, and advice can be ignored, this particular model focuses on having the employers integrally co-lead the work rather than just advising. So what are we doing? We started with thought leader meetings. The thought leaders led the job cluster or skill set identification overall. This National Science Foundation grant funded us to develop sets of skill standards for 8 to 10 of the most difficult to fill job clusters. And we'll tell you in a little bit about what we mean when we say skill set versus job cluster. But we actually did start with almost 100 CTOs and CIOs primarily to identify where to get started on these job clusters. And this group identified 7 through a series of meetings and also through surveys coming together to gain some consensus. The second thought leader meetings were held recently to identify the remaining 2 or 3 clusters. And actually there are several skill sets under consideration. We'll talk a little more about that, but the skill sets actually can overlay various different jobs. For example, one might be artificial intelligence. These are skills that may be appropriate for lots of different job clusters, as opposed to being a job cluster in and of themselves. Okay, once we have the job clusters identified, for each of the job cluster meetings, we had 2 or 3 meetings with subject matter experts from industry to determine the key tasks, knowledge, skills, and abilities employers want workforce ready grads to have to do or have in the future. We had about 20 employers, approximately 20 educators participating in each job cluster. That's an average. And we actually worked from a pro forma list of tasks, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And that pro forma list was created by searching through the industry and through various sources, such as Career One Stop, Association lists, information from NIST, information from various colleges, to come up with a pro forma list, which is basically a starting point for those subject matter experts. Then they voted on those items and then discussed those items at each meeting. And then the project team synthesized the data across the meetings and then brought the SMEs back together to verify the synthesis, because it should not be too surprising if you have 3 different meetings that what comes up in the meetings may be a little bit different. We also have them vote on key performance indicators for the tasks. How do you know if a task has been done? And together that forms the draft skill standards. We've worked with almost 200 different business SMEs over the first 6 job clusters. And we've also incorporated work from lots of different standards bodies, the NICE and NIST group, ACM, state standards, et cetera. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. In addition, the subject matter experts per job cluster do 2 more things. They help us with dissemination. It's been very interesting in that some of the folks that have helped us on the job cluster SME level have actually recruited other SMEs to help us as well. And they've also helped us in terms of providing ideas to sustain the updates, because National Science Foundation can't afford to keep funding this particular project forever. And as you well know, the IT world is an area that changes frequently. Educators attend these meetings. This looks like a face-to-face meeting, and we haven't had those in a while, but we used to have them. They do participate in the meeting, and they assist in converting the tasks and the KSAs to student learning outcomes, so that educators across the nation can use those SLOs to modify curriculum or to create curriculum. They do that also in crosswalking the discussions about what can reasonably be done in a 2-year degree versus a 4-year degree. The KSAs in many cases are too voluminous to be covered in a 2-year degree, and therefore some of them have to be kind of spilled over into a 4-year degree. And then the educators are also going to assist with dissemination and actually with implementation using the actual skill standards. Here are the first 7 clusters. 6 are complete, 1's in process. Infrastructure, administration, and engineering. Think networking plus cloud. Tech support, technical project management, basically project management in a technical environment, technical as in IT, cybersecurity environment, software development and engineering, data management and engineering. And you can basically think about that as what used to be the DBA type programs. However, now data is not always in databases. So the subject matter experts, the thought leader experts, wanted to label this area data management and engineering instead of DBA. Then data analytics and predictive modeling, and then cybersecurity. That one is actually in process, and we are converting that one over into a skill set. As I mentioned, we brought the thought leaders back together to figure out the remaining 3 job clusters to consider. And what came out of the discussion was that, in fact, it's probably not job clusters that we're focusing upon. It's sets of skills that need to be applicable for various different jobs. And these are some of the areas that are under consideration: artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, 5G. We're pretty sure we're going to integrate that into infrastructure because that's basically just an implementation technology. IoT, IT automation, and AR, VR, augmented reality, and virtual reality. Clearly, we can't do all of these, but these are the ones that came up in the discussions. Now, what do we have when we say we have a set of skill standards on a cluster? We have the list of tasks and KSAs with the numerical average of the votes across the SME meetings. We provide that in PDF format and Excel format. We have student learning outcomes to use in creating curriculum. We have the key performance indicators for the tasks that the SMEs have verified. And we have levels of key employability skills for each different cluster. What we are finding is that though the employability skills are similar across the clusters, they're not exactly the same. Sustainability, we kind of alluded to that earlier. We're piloting a crowdsourcing approach to keep the job skills updated. And if you go to the CTC website, the National Convergence Technology Center website, there's actually a tab on that website right now that will allow you to go to the various ITSS sets of skill standards and will allow you to register to be able to comment. We are moving to a separate domain for the ITSS, but that's still in progress. We're also seeking industry financial support and leadership to continue supporting the effort. That it takes money. That's what it boils down to. Skill standards take time to develop, and time equates to money. Now I'm going to turn it over to Christina Titus, who is going to show you how to access the skill standards.
As Anne has just shared with you the process for how we've come up with all of these draft documents, I'd like to take a time now and show you how to access these documents so that you may start utilizing them and implementing them. When you go to itskillstandards.org, this is the screen that will pop up. This is our homepage. This top bar is our information resource at a glance, and it will tell you of upcoming meetings, where we are at with an analysis and verification. And then the right-hand side is our posted job clusters. If you click on one, we'll take data analytics. It brings up the data analytics page. Each page will look very similar. At the top of every page will be a definition or an explanation of what that job cluster is per the thought leaders that helped us identify these job clusters. And then you'll come down here to the bottom of the page and you'll see there's a little table. The first column here, if you click on any of these, it will take you to another page where you can view the documents in the website. Or you can choose to download. KSAs, we do offer PDF or Excel. An Excel version will allow you to implement a lot faster, and you can just utilize our document straight away. The comment section, you'll see a sign in, and that is how we are managing the closed crowdsourcing for our job skills. Let's look at the KSAs. At the top of every KSA page, it will remind you what a task, knowledge, skill, and ability is. And then as you scroll down, you will see our KSAs for data analytics here. And we do include the average of the subject matter experts vote so that you can see how they ranked it on our scale. And if you scroll down, you'll see it goes all the way down through the KSAs, the Ks, the Ss, and the As. Let's go back and let's look at student learning outcomes for another example. Again, we have a short little explanation of what student learning outcomes are and their purpose. And then below you will see the student learning outcomes for data analytics. The other feature is the closed crowdsourcing. So if you were to click sign in, it takes you to a registration page. And it's a quick little registration. It takes a few seconds. And then once you're approved, you'll be able to log in and provide feedback. We also provide videos on how to register and how to provide comments to the website, as well as a little bit of the benefits to employers and educators. It's important, as Anne stated, that we keep this living and it's not a created and done. We want to keep this updated and a living document. We talked about the registration and comment. So what can you do? Well, you can sign up to provide feedback on the website. That will be very helpful to the project continuing to move forward. You can apply to be one of our educator subject matter experts for a cluster of your expertise or a skill set of your expertise. You could also recommend appropriate employer SMEs who may be interested and able to participate in the skill standards. You can just send them to our website and guide them towards us. We're always looking to have a large, wide reach of employer influence in our skill standards. And then apply the skill standards at your college for your curriculum. We do have some upcoming professional development. We'll be working on using skill standards to advance your college IT curriculum. That webinar is set for September 17th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can use that link to register. And if you have any questions or you want to be a part of it, please email Anne or I. We'll be happy to reach back to you and provide more information or get you connected into one of the meetings. Thank you.